On June 24th, a video surfaced online showing an incident on Beijing subway line 10. An elderly man asked a woman to give up her seat. The woman replied that she would offer her seat to someone else, but not to him. The elderly man then began harassing her, first by grabbing her hand and then covering her mouth with his hand, forcefully pushing her backward. During this confrontation, a nearby middle-aged woman, unable to watch any longer, stood up and offered her seat to the elderly man, hoping to defuse the situation. However, the man ignored her and continued to harass the young woman. Other passengers, outraged by his behavior, tried to intervene, but the elderly man became even more aggressive. He jabbed his cane between the woman's legs, swinging it back and forth while also grabbing at her arms. He continued to taunt her, saying, "Come with me to the police station. Report it. Go ahead, report it." Meanwhile, the woman kept pleading,
"Don't touch me, don't touch me."
On June 25th, the Beijing Public Transportation Police reported that a 65-year-old man named Yi had been involved in a dispute with another passenger over a seat, disrupting the order on the subway. He was detained, though the report did not mention any sexual harassment. This incident was widely covered by major Chinese news sites, and netizens expressed their outrage over the elderly man's behavior. It's not that elderly people have turned bad, but that bad people have grown old. People of this generation grew up amid material scarcity, social upheavals, and sudden wealth, making them incapable of calmly dealing with others. This bitterness manifests in selfish, harmful behavior where they hurt others to get what they want. These domineering elderly people claim to be weak when riding public transport, but act like warriors when fighting in supermarkets or other confrontations. This old man forcing the young woman to give up her seat is just a filthy old rogue. He was probably never a decent person, even when he was younger. People like him should be severely punished. He needs time in prison to reflect and learn what it means to be a decent human being. Instead of caring for young women, he exploits his age to harass them and disturb others, taking advantage of the situation. Why is moral blackmail against young people so common now? It's because the current laws allow old people to act without restraint, using the traditional respect for elders to justify their suppressed rogue behavior. Good laws can curb bad behavior, but bad laws let these people do whatever they want. In my view, after detaining people like this old rogue, they should be sent to prison. And for those who exploit their age to take advantage of others, they should not only face imprisonment for their crimes, but also have their retirement pension suspended. This man was actually a former head teacher at a school, now 65 and retired, yet he behaves like this on a bus. Elderly people like him should have their pensions completely cut off and be forced to reflect on their actions. Young people's respect for the elderly shouldn't be mistaken for indulgence. Giving up a seat isn't an obligation. We need to consider each other's feelings. I believe this man should be sentenced to 10 years in prison. If we impose harsher penalties, there'll be fewer people like him in China. Detaining him isn't enough. He needs a real prison sentence. We can be compassionate, but we shouldn't tolerate such bad behavior. On August 14th, in Nanjing, Jiangsu province, an elderly man on the subway forcibly demanded a young man give up his seat, even threatening to hit him if he didn't comply. The young man responded, "I've already given up a seat. I'm not sitting here. Why are you blaming me?" Despite other passengers trying to calm him down, the elderly man continued to curse and acted as if he was about to hit the young man. A bystander warned him, "You could go to jail for this. You can't hit people." The elderly man retorted, "Even if I go to jail, it doesn't matter to me. If he doesn't behave, I'll hit him." He also claimed that he wouldn't be jailed for hitting someone, saying, "Do you even know who I am?" On June 16, 2024, in Shenyang, Liaoning province, a man and an elderly person got into a heated argument over a seat on subway line 1. The younger man suddenly broke down, shouting, "I need to earn money. Stop bullying me." Social media users commented, Honestly, young people nowadays need the seats more than the elderly. Sadly, this kind of aggressive behavior from elderly people towards the younger generation is not an isolated case. It has been happening across China for over a decade. On the morning of April 6, 2021, around 9 a.m., an elderly man on Guangzhou Subway Line 8 argued with a female passenger over a seat. Ms. Luo and her husband, who were on the same train, witnessed the entire incident. She explained that there were 6 female passengers seated in one row, with just enough space for a child to squeeze in. The elderly man asked for a seat, but after being refused, he shocked everyone by sitting on a woman's lap. The woman jumped up, exclaiming, "Uncle, you can't just sit on my lap. Are you trying to take advantage of me?" This led to a heated argument. A young man nearby tried to calm the elderly man down, but he grew more agitated and continued verbally abusing the women for the lack of public decency. His insults escalated until the train arrived at Kuchun Station, where he finally got off, bringing the incident to an end. On January 18, 2021, on Shanghai Metro Line 2, an elderly man with graying hair got into a heated argument with a woman over a seat. Visibly agitated, the elderly man pointed at the woman and repeatedly said, "You will get old too, and you will die. Don't you have elderly people in your family?" He continued to repeat this during the confrontation. The woman involved shared,
Later, an elderly man sitting nearby couldn't watch anymore and offered his seat. At that moment, the other man suddenly sat on my lap. I was so panicked and shocked when it happened that I couldn't even capture it on video.
There are also cases where elderly people insist on others giving up their seats, even when there are empty seats available. On the morning of May 28, 2018, an elderly man boarded Nanning Subway Line 1 at Zhu Station. Despite the availability of empty seats in the carriage, he insisted on sitting on a young woman's seat. He loudly demanded that she move, but after noticing the surrounding empty seats, she ignored him. The elderly man then began to insult her. A young man nearby couldn't stand it anymore and intervened to stop the elderly man. However, this only made the elderly man angrier, and he tried to physically confront the young man. A woman nearby stepped in to separate them. Even after sitting down, the elderly man continued to curse and use foul language. On September 8, 2017, on Nanjing Subway Line 1, an elderly woman, believing she was entitled to a seat because she was both a senior and a woman, demanded that young passengers give up their seats for her, regardless of where they were sitting. When a young passenger refused to give up his seat, the woman, ignoring the judgment of others, astonishingly sat directly on his lap. The video footage shows her calmly sitting on the young man, swaying with the movement of the subway. This clip quickly went viral online, sparking widespread discussion. Many people commented, saying, "Can't she stand? Why make things hard for young people? Is sitting on someone's lap more comfortable? This is sexual harassment, and she's clearly taking advantage of him." On October 26, 2016, around 8:30 a.m., on Shenyang Subway Line 1, an elderly man and a young woman got into an argument after he demanded her seat. The man accused the woman of not giving up her seat and even hit her. While the earlier part of the incident wasn't recorded, the young woman eventually lost her temper and the two started yelling at each other. In the video, the young woman, visibly upset, said, "Get off, call the police, don't you dare leave. My father has never laid a hand on me, and now you hit me?" Meanwhile, the elderly man continued cursing. Both got off the train at Baogong Street station. Before they exited, several passengers tried to calm them down to prevent the situation from escalating. One witness said, "The old man demanded the young woman give up her seat. He then kicked her and questioned why she had the right to sit there. She told him not to touch her, fearing he'd try to take advantage of the situation. That's when he started hitting her. Everyone agreed the old man had gone too far. He wouldn't back down, cursing at anyone who spoke up. The young woman eventually called the police." A user on Chinese platform Xiaohongshu uploaded a video with a caption, "Who can understand this? I was just riding the subway for fun when this old man got on and demanded we give up our seats. There were plenty of seats, but he kept bothering us. I'm truly speechless." In the video, the elderly man repeatedly said, "Such poor manners." A young woman responded,
You are taking advantage of your age. Don't try to guilt trip us.
Incidents like these aren't just limited to subways and buses. They even happen on airplanes. An elderly woman said, "You young people need to give me your seat." A young woman replied, "Why should I give up my seat just because I'm younger? What makes you think you deserve my seat?" The elderly woman responded, "I don't care. You had to give it to me." The young woman kept on asking, "Why do I have to give up my seat?" The elderly woman insisted, "You need to switch with me. I'm saying I'm sick." The elderly woman wouldn't let it go, and the exchange turned into a heated argument. An older man, likely the woman's husband, then joined in and started verbally attacking the young woman as well. The elderly woman then added, "Sure, I'm being unreasonable, but I'm old, so they can't detain me. Do you believe that?" Finally, the flight attendants moved the elderly woman to another seat, and the situation was resolved. Disputes between elderly people and young passengers over seats on public transportation have become common. The issue of giving up seats has become a hot topic online, sparking debates each time such incidents occur. This has led to broader discussions about whether young people should give up their seats for the elderly. These debates usually split people into two groups. One group believes in public courtesy, saying that young people should always offer their seats to the elderly, pregnant women, and others in need. They argue that refusing to do so is rude and shows a lack of manners. The other group opposes what they call moral blackmail. They believe that giving up a seat is a kind of gesture, but not an obligation. They criticize those who demand seats as taking advantage of their age or status. Some commentators point out that the issue isn't so simple. They argue that while the elderly may behave poorly, we should also reflect on why this happens. Is it because society isn't giving the elderly enough care and they're seeking attention in extreme ways? Everyone has a right to enjoy public resources, but in reality, conflicts like the battle over seats or the war over public squares for dancing arise regularly in China. These conflicts show that the way people live and think in China is changing. With the fast pace of modern life, many young people are worn out from work and daily life. This makes it harder for them to stay patient or energetic, which leaves them less willing to give up their seats. At the same time, some elderly people are disappointed in the younger generation's behavior, and they would sometimes scold them, which makes young people even less willing to offer their seats. As the pressures of life and work increase, many people are busy trying to make a living, leaving them with little rest. This stress can cause tension, making people less likely to consider others' needs or offer help. The root of the problem lies in society's shifting values and morals. People's moral standards are changing, and China's value system is also evolving. Commentator and social media figure Toronto Squareface analyzed how China's moral decline is tied to its post-totalitarian era. China has become a typical example of a society where people harm one another. This issue is not about legal enforcement, but also about the moral values of Chinese people. As a Chinese person myself, I don't believe that we are beyond hope or inherently inferior, but I do have to acknowledge that there are serious moral issues in our society. In a BBC article titled, "Discussing China, Who's to Blame for the Moral Decline?" it was noted that the rise of the CCP began with the seizure of wealth from the rich and at times even their lives. The CCP encouraged the poor to join in acts of looting, violence, and murder, branding these actions as revolution. These practices only ceased when the CCP had firmly established its rule. This legacy has set a profoundly negative moral example for the Chinese people. During its rule, the CCP often acted in its own interest, ignoring people's welfare. A ruling party that deceives its citizens has corrupted the moral fabric of society. How can they expect the public to govern themselves with integrity when their leaders act dishonestly? When those in power behave poorly, how can they expect the people to act with decency? China's moral collapse didn't happen overnight. It has been the result of years of decline. The CCP's actions have been the primary cause of this breakdown. While the CCP benefits, it is the nation and its people who suffer. One user commented, "Blindly defending your country isn't an act of patriotism. Rather, it is harmful to the nation. While not all Chinese people have lost their morals, moral decline is a widespread issue in China. Several factors contribute to this. 1. The CCP's constantly shifting policies have fostered a culture of opportunism where people are conditioned to chase after fleeting advantages. 2. Poor leadership sets a bad example, leading to widespread unethical behavior among the populace. 3. When laws and policies favor the elite and offer limited opportunities for ordinary people, it inevitably leads to various moral issues within society. Commentator Toronto Squareface also said that China currently lacks a strong value system. The Chinese people have developed a distorted set of values based on the current situation. To fix this moral decline, China needs to rebuild a core ideology.
所以其实在我看来呢
In my opinion, the only way for Chinese people to overcome this moral crisis is to rebuild universal values centered on democracy. Every Chinese person should contribute to this effort.